was that pastor who was awakened from slumber to answer that call when he heard the British were coming. You know, he was in slumber because we all slumber. He was a pastor, but he's also a farmer. I've heard his story, don't know his name, but he probably has one of many. And there were so many who answered that call. But you know, what struck me about this pastor was that he was locked and loaded. His gun was leaning on the bedstead wall, and it was ready to go because he knew there was a risk, there was a threat. Yeah, the British aren't coming, but there's a threat. And we have very few Paul Reveres today answering the call to the threat. And we have very few people like that pastor of a mindset to really understand what this threat is. Now, for well over 15, maybe 20 years now, I have been talking, not in this caucus, we've been doing this 5 years, Carl. 5 years here every Friday night. But before that, I had been really with the Bush, W. Bush. I've almost forgot his name already. And his entanglement with the North America Union. Okay, now I've been trying to figure that out because it affected me with the illegal labor. The North America Union, I was fighting it 15 years ago. I was learning about it. I was trying to understand it. I was just like that pastor who was trying to get locked and loaded, who'd be ready to go. So, you know, and it sort of passed. It sort of passed. I didn't really understand exactly why they wanted the NAFTA superhighway, why they wanted NAFTA. I didn't understand why Ross Perot actually accomplished something that he said he didn't want. He was the one that benefited most by NAFTA, folks. He's the only reason Bill Clinton was president. Bill Clinton got NAFTA signed by a Democrat Senate that would not have signed it under George Staddy. Okay, now that's just the facts. We got that accomplished. Why am I talking about a threat? Why am I talking about a person giving a clarion call like Paul Revere? Why am I talking about the borders not being there? Why am I talking about a suspended effort that I had of a North America Union? I'm going to tell you why. Because there's a threat to our country right now that we are not focusing on. Yeah, we're trying to get good Republicans elected, Carl. We're trying to get good people in the Regents. We're trying to do all of the things that stewards of our party would do. But we are overlooking a very important threat. We have a Paul Revere sitting among us. And that's Professor Kaufman. And I don't care what people say about what he tries to do because they don't want to face the facts of the threat that is coming at us from China. See, because I tried to understand what the North American Union was. The North American Union was a combining of three nations, Mexico, United States, and Canada. All under one security and prosperity agreement, which really did get signed. Yeah. That got signed back in 1995 with Vicente Fox, George W. Bush, and Harper. Was it Harper or the Canadian president? They signed the security and prosperity agreement. Why? Why did we go into, and it wasn't a treaty, folks, it was an agreement that was signed by three presidents. Okay, there was an executive order. We complain all the time about Obama signing executive orders, but you know what? Where were we when George W. signed the Security and Prosperity Agreement? No, George W. signed it. 1995. Well, George maybe got the date wrong. H.W. did not sign the Security and Prosperity Agreement. It was later. George W. signed that with Vicente Fox. But it was signed. And it was a presidential decision directive, which is the same as an executive order. Why am I talking about it? Why do I want, see Carl, I lay a trap for people who come, and so that you understand. We don't just want to hear from you, we sort of want you to hear from us. And usually with these opening comments, I try to paint a picture of what's important to us, so that when you go away from here, you will remember why we meet every Friday night. But I'm not that Paul Revere. I have said that Professor Kaufman is. I respect this man because he's put his career on the line and sometimes his safety. I will tell you this. China is coming. That's right. They're not the red coats. They're the reds. And it can be we can be accused of McCarthyism, okay? I'm willing. Because everywhere you turn right now, Carl, you may remember in the news, there was a community in Milan. The Milan Meyer came to our caucus and talked to us and informed us about this. China wanted to make a China-owned land community, raise a China flag, and no one but China techs could live there. I couldn't go, I couldn't anyway because I don't have money, I couldn't go and buy a house there because I wasn't in the classification of being a China person. I don't just like saying Chinese because Chinese are good folks. I know a lot of good Chinese. I love Chinese food. But when I say a China person, I get the context of China-owned entities. When China buys a corporation, when China bought the Free Press building, that is communist-owned, folks. Because that is not Chinese-owned. It's not owned by a Chinese person. That is China-owned. The People's Republic of China owns the Free Press building. The People's Republic of China would have owned that I think it was 40 lots or 400.
400 acres.
440 lots.
Yeah, well, 40 or 400, whichever it was, they're not going to fly a China flag there. But that's what they wanted to do. With the Milan Meyer coming, we got that flag. Here's another thing that you have heard me mention, and I think it's relevant, and I talked to Carl a little bit about this. And why would it be that it's on our radar that Governor Snyder could possibly be making a run at the White House? And by the way, if this happens, let me tell you something. It was just confirmed to me through a very trustworthy source, a very high, credible source, that there was a meeting in the governor's office to form an exploratory committee. As they're not making an announcement that the committee is being formed, there was a meeting about forming one to run for the White House. Now, of course, if he loses the governor's race, this won't happen. Well, why am I talking about an outside shot at Governor Snyder running for the White House? The reason I'm talking about is because the redcoats are coming. And I'll wait for that to be done. The reason I'm talking about it is because of the Buddhist monk temple. Remember Al Gore? Remember Bill Clinton? Remember the China donations to the Buddhist monk temple that was challenged? Remember Ron Brown saying that if I go down, everybody around me is going down, and he went down. Everybody around him didn't go down. He was wrong. But this was China back then. This was over the L'Oreal Corporation transferring a missile launch technology. It was about ball bearings, folks. Back then, way back then, Al Gore, Buddhist monk temple. Some of you will remember. This was the L'Oreal Corporation giving a dual-use technology to China, transferred through the Commerce Department that was supposed to have been done through the State Department. Okay, Bill Clinton, through Presidential Decision Directive or Executive Order, either one, I don't care, they're the same, he transferred the authority from the State Department to the Commerce Department, which Ron Brown was the head of. And Ron Brown did the president a favor and transferred that dual-use technology to China. Now, China couldn't launch their missiles. They could launch them, but they would go up and they would come back down. Their missiles, under the guise of dual use, under the guise of satellite technology, wanting to put a satellite up in space, China wanted the technology that would help them get that done. So these ball bearings that L'Oreal Corporation produced, that Ron Brown transferred illegally, China then was able to launch those missiles. But guess what? They were dual use. They were also missiles that would shoot down things. They weren't just satellites. So it was a dual use technology. Why am I talking about that? I don't want to take a lot of time away from Carl, but Carl needs to understand what motivates us. And this is not a new issue for us. Governor Snyder, the reason that we have opposed him from the very get-go, we voted for him instead of George Monero. I didn't work hard for him. I was a Bouchard guy. But I think we got hijacked in the primary. And I fear that may happen again nationally. If we, Ben Carson today, there's rumors that he wants to run. God bless him, he's a good man. But if we have 3, 4, 5 good conservative candidates, that the Chamber of Commerce will back a moderate Republican. That's why, for a while, I was calling Mitt Romney out on laying low. I blew that, by the way. That's out. I talked with his people. His people says he will not run. But I agree with Carl. He may run in the end if Jeb Bush fails and decides, Chamber of Commerce decides that they can't get him nominated through the primary because of folks like us. I will not stand for Jeb Bush because he is an open borders person. He is the North American Union person. He speaks to La Raza. His son, George E. Bush, is being groomed for a presidency run when he comes of age. He is a member of La Raza, George E. Bush. Okay, why is it important for me to communicate this in front of Carl about the North American Union? Because I believe that this presidential run that Rick Snyder is going to do is going to be China-backed. I believe China is going to funnel big money, and I think that the China Symposium that they had about 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, at Cobo Hall in Detroit, had everything to do, and the EB-5 visas that the president called for, Governor Snyder called for, over 50,000 visas. You have to bring $1 million in, and Governor Snyder formed by an executive order a clearinghouse to receive those funds. $1 million times 50, well, it's 50 million, but it's even bigger than that. No. It was 50,000, folks. It was 50,000 visas that he was asking Washington to approve. But each one of those had to bring $1 million into his clearinghouse that he formed by executive order. I don't know where all that money will go, but I'm doing a job for a couple that are here under that EB-5 visa program. They're teaching at Eastern Michigan University. I would say they're probably okay, a good reason to be here. But why is it necessary to talk about Rick Snyder and open borders, North American Union, and China? Because China wants the presidency. China wants, okay, folks know we've been on this for years. China wants that big bridge built across to Canada. Rick Snyder cannot get that done as governor. Rick Snyder cannot get that bridge done as governor. Carl, you want to know why? That man right there and this man right here. I'll take the blame. I don't care if you call it credit or not. We stood and testified before the Senate committee, and they could not bring it down because we threatened to primary them. They could have brought it down, but they chose not. So it never made it to the floor. That was when Governor Snyder failed to get his bridge done. Now, see, here's the thing. It has to be done by treaty, folks, because Matthew Maroon has treaty rights on that. A governor can't get it done. The president can get it done. Obama won't. Why? I don't know. Maybe he's got too much on his plate. Maybe they're not giving him enough under the table or whatever. I don't know. You know, it's unfair for me to make judgments like that, but usually when presidents go out, they get a lot of provisionary actions from people. But it has to be done by treaty. And guess what? When you sign a treaty, guess what has to happen? A treaty has to be advice and consent of the Senate by 2/3 majority of the Senate. China is coming. The Reds are coming. China wants to build that bridge. China is doing things with, what was this professor's name? I've forgotten it already. Wei Shi. This is a professor that University of Michigan, this is why it's important that you hear this, Carl, because you will be called to answer for it, or give an opinion on it, as do we with any of the regents who come here. Ron Weiser really blew us off. Ron Weiser disrespected that man right there, and I didn't like that. I like Ron Weiser. You know, there's a lot of things I like about him. There's several things I don't like about him, but he said about Dan Benefit. In reverse. A lot of things I don't like about him, several things. But you may be called to Shi was a professor at the University of Michigan, told Professor Kaufman, this man right here developed the missile launch technologies for the Trident missile while he was 40 years at the University of Michigan. Wei Shi was, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to be wrong, especially with the camera running. There was a thing called Harbin University in China, right? That is the same as the MIT here. It is where the technology would go if they did steal it, and they're doing a good job stealing it. So the University of Michigan ordered Professor Kaufman to teach the missile launch technologies to a Harbin University professor who was over here writing down, taking down notes and names, and just taking the research and development back. Professor Kaufman didn't like the notion. This is why I say he's a false hero. This is why I say we met him, as a matter of fact, at the Dingle debate with Doc Steele. That's where we met this crazy fella. I think he had a sandwich board on, didn't he? Walking up and down, he didn't look like a Tea Party guy, but the more we talked with him, the more we understood that we had a lot in common. The Reds are coming. And so what he ended up showing us was there is a thing going on at the University of Michigan with China, and it has to be addressed. There's a thing going on at the University of Michigan that has to be addressed with the field goal kicker, Brendan Gibbons. There's a thing going on with the Attorney General, of whom I like saying it, but I'm not so proud of it anymore. Forgive me, Bill, if you happen to see this on. I am not proud of not being able to get my friend, the Attorney General, to open an investigation on the University of Michigan handling of the Brendan Gibbons case. I was told by Bill Schuette's handlers that there was an ongoing FBI investigation, therefore he could not do it. It's not so. There is not an ongoing FBI investigation. If there was, I would be willing to give my friend, Bill Schuette, a way out on that, but there's not. There is a Title IX federal investigation as to the civil action about the funding of the sports program. That is not a criminal investigation. Bill Schuette still has the ability to do a grand jury, and it could be a private one. Bill says that he is that he's a protector of, let me see exactly how he words it, of people who are harmed. Well, it was more than the girl that was harmed at University of Michigan. This was 4 years ago. University of Michigan finally exposed the fellow over the rape issue. But the girl had dealt with it. She had put it aside. I don't know if she's happy with it, but I'm going to tell you something, folks, about this girl. It is more than that girl who needs protection at the University of Michigan. You know who it is? It's me. I've got a 15-year-old granddaughter. Just took her to the zoo. If Tim was here, I met Tim at the zoo. At the Detroit Zoo. Tim, I'm going there, and I've got a problem with my foot, so I'm in one of those little carts. And strolling around the zoo with my 15-year-old granddaughter. Tim's there, too. That's just a side note. But the reason I'm a victim, Bill says he's a victim's advocate. But the girl isn't the victim anymore. She's dealt with it. I'm the victim because I got a 15-year-old granddaughter who is very good at marching band. She's going to be, I've told you before, at the Macy's Day Parade. She's #1 in the state, #6 in the nation, Boulder Lake Central. Very proud of her. She can get a full ride at the University of Michigan if she pursues it. You know who the victim is? I am. Because, and she is. Because I don't have the confidence that the Regents there will take care of business if another field goal kicker or a quarterback finds a fancy to my 15-year-old, which will be 18-year-old at that time. She won't have the protection of procedure at the University of Michigan. And I'm not happy about that, my friend Bill Schuette. I'm not happy that the University of Michigan gets a pass. We're the victims when the process and procedure isn't held to account. And this man, Professor Kaufman, has been talking about the process and procedure about China pushing its people on our research and development and flying to China. And coming back on us in bad ways, folks. We have a gold star family that isn't here because they vacation in the wintertime, in the summertime. reason I bring this up is because the missile launch technology that China, research and development that China has taken, who do you think they farm that out to? Through North Korea, it goes through Iran. Iran to Iraq. We have had young men and women who are, their lives have been taken by a missile. And the Bloomfields don't like me talking about it when they're here, but it needs to be talked about because their son was killed by a missile. That missile, I think it was Fallujah, if not it was another, but that missile came from Iran. What do you want to bet that that missile didn't come from China through North Korea? I don't know. But what I do know is it could have, because we're not watching. We're not paying attention. We're in slumber and our guns are not locked and loaded. We're not on the horse saying the Reds are coming. We're not doing it. We should have everybody in common, even the unions, should be with us on this. But we are so partisan that we cannot gather Americans together to make this a better issue for America. Because unions should be willing to share this message with us. If they heard it, they would be. But they can't hear it because we're so busy trying to get good Republicans elected, so they're going to work everything against us. And that's okay, that's the nature of politics, the reason I don't like it. The country needs us, and as our website says, Willow Run Bomber Plant, they were there when America called, now we're calling on America. Yeah, America's under threat right now, folks. And we're talking about things that just doesn't matter. It's good to get people elected. And here, Carl, get ready to come. Carl Meyer, running for Regency. You have his bio. We need to be the ones who pull the posers rather than push the promisers. That's what I call Cantorizing. Eric Cantor found out what that means to be pulled, when it is that you do not hold your promises to your constituents. His constituents didn't feel that he was representing them and spending enough time. And the Tea Party guy was able to unseat him. I hope the Tea Party guy wins the general because it would be bad if he doesn't. But we'll see about that. But what I'm saying is, we need to pull the posers rather than push the promisers. It's not that we can't work for a good person to back him. There's several rooms we have to make decisions on. But I'm all about, right now, my mission is to do that very thing. Because those who don't care about answering that call, that the Reds are coming, I say that's a direct threat to this country. Never so more true than at the University of Michigan. Never so more true. I thank Professor Kaufman for everything he does. He cannot be here all the time, but when he's here, it is a very big plus for our caucus to understand what his words are. You'll get some question and answers from Professor Kaufman who can give you a heads up on it. So, as I quieten down, give me some water, my throat's scratchy, help me welcome Carl Meyer.
Rousing introduction, wasn't it? But good. I'm Carl Myers, and I'm running for the University of Michigan Board of Regents. And some of the folks in this room I've met, some of them I haven't met. I've been traveling the state for the last year and meeting with folks like yourself. I believe that I must have a relationship with the delegates that are ultimately going to nominate me at the convention. Dennis is right. There's some other fine gentlemen that are running. And I want to tell you why I believe I'm the right choice at the right time. Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself first. I come from Dearborn. My first act of political involvement was when I was 10 years old. I organized a protest against the teacher strike. I was protesting because the teachers were on strike and they were going to cut our summer short because of the extra days that we'll need to go for school. I thought that was wrong. But in 1980, I got involved with the Ronald Reagan presidential campaign after college, and I have not missed an election cycle ever since. And I'm proud to say that parts of our Republican Party have finally caught up with me. See, I've been a conservative for a long time. I've been a grassroots activist this election. Of all the college education spots, these folks parachute in every 2 years from God knows where, or what they've been doing. And they say, I'm back, give me the nomination. But I challenge you to ask them what they've done for the last 2 years. Let me tell you what I've done for the last 2 years. Well, starting back in 2006, I've been the treasurer of the Michigan Republican Party for the last 8 years. And I did it for six months. I said I'd do it, then I'm gone. Here I am 8 years later. I've given thousands of hours, primarily because I want to make sure things got done right. I've been a fiscal conservative my whole life, and I'm in the financial business, and I have the skill set to do it. That's the part that I did. But what I enjoy most is working in the trenches, getting like-minded conservative folks elected. Since 2 years ago, what I've done is I've been a poll challenger in every election. And you know where I go? You know where I like to go? I go to the south end of Dearborn, 100% Middle Eastern, 100%. And I'm a poll challenger. And when they sick the thugs on me, poking their fingers in my chest, telling me I'm going to be on Fox News because I'm suppressing the Democratic, the Arab American vote, I say bring it on. I'm just doing my constitutional duty to make sure we run a fair election. I'm allowed to be here. I'm a poll watcher from the Michigan Republican Party, and I can challenge you. So it gets a little rough down there because they bring a lot of old world voting habits with them to the new world. Intimidation, thuggery, you wouldn't believe it. During the presidential election at McDonald's School in East Dearborn, right by Tyerman, Wyoming, it's in deep, there was a woman that set up a table inside the gymnasium. Her name was Faye Baydoun. She set up a table, and she was one of Barack Obama's delegates at the National Convention. So she sets up a table in the voting place under the auspices of helping the community vote. So she would be flagging people down, they would have runners bringing people over, then they would personally walk them over and help them vote. The law says you can't have any assistance. And if you need an interpreter, the city clerk would come. We got into a shouting match, the police had to come. Susan Shabalewski was there, Bill Runko was there, but we did not back down. That's one of the things I did over the last 2 years. The other thing is at Henry Ford Community College, they had very lax financial controls. And I'll bring this all back to the University of Michigan in just a moment. Henry Ford Community College, very lax financial controls. They got ripped off on Pell Grant scam for nearly $15 million. So you know what happened when they got ripped off? You know what they wanted from the citizens, the taxpayers of Dearborn? Because we have our own captive community college. You know what they wanted? They wanted a bailout. Sound familiar? They wanted a bailout. I said no. I self-finance a drive to vote no on Proposal 1 for the millage in Dearborn, the millage increase. Because you know what happens to a millage increase when it sunsets or when it's done? What comes back next? Renewal. Gotta have millage renewal. Otherwise we go broke. No financial discipline. I'm a tight-fisted fiscal conservative, and I watch my pennies. I tell my kids, if you don't watch your pennies, you will never have dollars. You will never have dollars. So I've also worked in the phone banks, the victory centers. That's what I enjoy most with recruiting candidates. In 2004, I ran for the University of Michigan Board of Regents, and I came just about 50,000 votes short. I almost made it. We got a couple gentlemen running this time. They're fine gentlemen. They say they're the most electable. They got the most votes last time. But let me tell you, I got nearly 150,000 votes more than Dan Horning or Rob Steele when they ran 2 years ago. Now, who's more electable? That will remain to be seen. Let me ask you a question why you're here tonight. I think I know why you're here. We're all here because our piece of the American dream seems to be slipping away or being taken away. I mean, that's why we're here. Otherwise, we wouldn't have reason to get together. We are concerned. We are the leaders in our respective community. And we know that the federal government has weaponized parts of the government against its own citizens. I mean, look what the IRS has done. Look what they're doing with ammunition. Look what they're doing with Common Core. Look what they're doing with health care. And if you oppose them, you got a problem. So this is our opportunity to stand up and push back. And this is what I'm prepared to do for the University of Michigan. You see, I went on the road last September and I said, I'm ready. I will stand up. I will push back. And I made a commitment with my family. We talked a lot about doing it because you got to go on the road. And if you don't have your family behind you, you're going no place because there will be no harmony or peace. So I went on the road last September. And these other fellows, they had a little head start. And one of the gentlemen, he had a lot more money. Thinks he can buy this thing. I don't think he can. But I went around all the states. I've been to hundreds and hundreds of meetings. I see Wes all the time. I mean, we bump into each other 2-3 days a week. But I've connected with the people and I've talked about the important issues. I think it's absolutely deplorable that nearly half the freshman class comes from out of state and from international students. 43%. 43%. You know what that means? A lot of Michigan students aren't getting into the University of Michigan because they're allocating those spots because they don't have the financial discipline. The students from out of state, the students from India, Pakistan, China, they come here. They take the spots of the Michigan students. And also the liberal elite from the left and the right coast. They send their children here. And what they do, they take one of the spots that should go to our children, our sons, our daughters. So you see, when they come from out of state, it's about the money. And this Board of Regents, going back to the time of one of my opponents in the 90s, have been pretty free and easy about raising tuition costs. They've expanded where there's surplus capacity. I mean, we go all over the state. Why should the university need billboards to advertise? It's crazy. But they don't have the fiscal discipline. What they've done is they've overbuilt. The state appropriation was going down at the same time. So you know how they solve their budgetary crisis? On the backs of us. The levy, the tax that is charged to us to send our students to the University of Michigan. That's what happened because they didn't have the fiscal discipline. I think it's also deplorable that they will now give in-state tuition to children of illegal immigrants. And I say, God bless these people who want to come here for a better life. We all came from someplace. But I know my family waited in line on Ellis Island and I got the papers to prove it. And I think a lot of the other families here would be the same. So, we welcome these folks for legal immigration. Nobody gets a pass. Nobody gets to go to the front of the line, to come here illegally. So what happens is when you give the child of an illegal immigrant in-state tuition, you've got to extract, remove, get rid of a Michigan student. My son, my daughter, your son's daughters, nieces, or nephew, or grandkids. They're forced not to go. And what happens is, then we start looking elsewhere. And this is what's really sad. My oldest son, he had to go to school at the University of Villanova in Philadelphia. He went there because he got a full scholarship. Now he works in New York City. Do you think he's ever coming home? Do you think he's coming home? Do you think he will be there in his chair at Thanksgiving dinner? Not going to happen. These families have been split apart, and it is so sad. It is so sad. And what has happened with student debt is even more tragic. Student debt in this country is a travesty. It is tragic. There's nearly $1.3 trillion of student debt in this country. It is far bigger than a housing crisis, and you know why? There's no collateral backing it. It's all on signatures. I read and hear about horror stories every day. I read about a young lady who wanted to give her life to service. She wanted to join the convent. But this particular order of nuns said, we have a vow of poverty. And you know what that vow? You can't have any debt when you join us. She had $140,000 of student debt. $140,000 that they're trying to help retire so she can join the convent. But these stories are just horrible because they have not exercised the fiscal discipline. Now let me ask you a question. Are there any tree huggers in the audience? Do we have any tree huggers? You can say if you
I like trees.
You like trees? I like trees. I like nature.
The trees hug me.
Well,
I'll try.
are you a tree hugger though? A closet tree hugger? Now, let me ask you a question. The old oak tree. We know in Jackson, Michigan, there was a special oak tree that the Republican Party started. But the Ross Business School is doing a little expansion. And there's an old oak tree there, 200 years old, 65 feet tall. Now, do you think it's worth it to spend $400,000 to move the damn tree? Seriously, they're spending $400,000 to move an oak tree that's 200 years old so they can expand the building. I was in the Detroit News a couple days ago. I couldn't believe it. A clear example of the liberals up there, the tail wagging the dog, saying we need to do these things. Spending $400,000. How many students could they give a scholarship to the University of Michigan? You know, one university, they could give, qualified minority students a full ride there. Probably 15 of them could go there for that price? And that is absolutely a lot. But I'll tell you, I believe the Regents at the University of Michigan, I believe they've lost their way. You got 6 Democrats on that board and 2 Republicans. And we have 2 Democrats up for re-election. I'd like to be one of the nominees at that convention. And I've been working my tail off for the past year. I'll share a little something I'm not going to share with the rest of the state because I don't want to kick the beehive, but I was with Rattle with Us last night over in Livonia, and they had about 60 folks, and they did a little straw poll last night. A guy named Carl Meyer's got 34 votes, Rob Steele got 23, Dan Horning got 6, and Ron Weiser got 1. It's pretty unbelievable, but I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm going to continue to tell my story. I think we need fiscal discipline. I think we need folks to follow the Constitution and the Michigan Constitution with oversight at the University of Michigan. And I think we need people who will stand up, push back, and challenge the system. And I'll tell you something else. I've got a wife and 3 kids that I love dearly. They want me to do this. I've been an investment advisor for 32 years. I have responsibility for over $500 million. Much of what the Regents do is financial related. I spend my days reading financial reports. I'm ready to go up there and challenge them on the budget, the line items. I think we need greater transparency up there from the budget to the meetings that they hold. And stop having meetings in Los Angeles and New York City because it's a bunch of crap. Plenty of good places in Michigan. Open the doors to the citizens. You see, it's our university. In the Michigan Constitution, it says the regents are elected by the citizens for oversight of the university. If it was a corporation, we would be the shareholders, electing the board of directors to hire the CEO. That's ours. It's our university. So I ask you this. Do you think it's time to have somebody go back and push back on the liberals at the University of Michigan? If you do, I'd like to respectfully ask and hope to earn 1 of your votes on that floor because you're going to have 2 votes on the floor of that convention. I'm opposed to Common Core. I'm pro-life. I'm pro-Second Amendment. And on Common Core, they're already making inroads to establish a foothold in higher education for a similar type of program. It will not happen on my watch. I will be the firewall. There will be not any type of standardized curriculum or proficiency testing at the University of Michigan on my watch. And I'm going to tell you folks that there's going to be a lot of pressure on this, but I will not be bought by anybody. I answer to myself. I answer to the people that put me there. I answer to you. Thank you for your time. I'll be free to answer some questions.
Questions and answers. Here's one right
Q&A.
This is a little hot.
My name is Dave Rathlow. As one person on the Board of Regents, would you be able to hire attorneys to take legal action as one regent? Because it seems like the situation is you're one of many and you've got 1 vote. So if you wanted the regents to do something, you either have to persuade enough of them or use your individual power as a regent. My question is, assemble your own legal team to take legal action when you see something that's illegal?
I don't know all of the rules of governance on the Board of Regents, but I would have to say I probably would not have the authority to, it really comes down to how you fund, how you pay for that, because they have to have a vote to decide. If they do hire outside counsel, there has to be a vote. It's very similar. In Dearborn, I'm the chairman of the city of Dearborn's pension fund, pension system for the police and fire and general employees, and we have a board, and occasionally we'll hire outside counsel for areas because we have our house attorney from Dearborn, but when they're in conflict, and we need a majority vote on our board to hire outside counsel, so I think that's where it would happen. But it gets to a bigger question, and you say, well, you're only one vote. Well, sometimes it only takes one vote, and you've got to be very persuasive. I've been a trader my whole life, and I'll trade, and I'll push, and I'll work the room. And if we're able to get 2 Democrats exited from the University of Michigan and put 2 Republicans there, it will be a 4-4 tie with the new president, the new well-paid president of the University of Michigan, who makes $750,000 a year, plus a $100,000 bonus. He would be then the tiebreaker. But I think the bigger threat that you have is really, the threat of talking publicly about really what happens. I believe they're deathly afraid of folks that will honestly speak and convey to their constituents this is what happens. And I think that's far more powerful as a persuasive tool to move progress in the right direction as far as exposing and talking about really what happens. Because I sincerely mean this, and I've been an investor in the investment business my whole life, and I have great respect for the rights of the shareholder. And I believe we're the shareholders. I mean, it's that simple. So, to answer your question, to recap, I don't believe that I would have the authority to issue funds, to hire an outside attorney. They do have their own attorney at the board, but certainly that's the wolf watching the chicken coop with that one. So the far bigger stake that we have is to publicly talk about really what happens as a person of authority from inside the circle.